Well, that's supposed to. I'm supposed to play some music, huh?
People always ask. All the-
People always ask it. People always ask it. You
People
can get it.
always
Why
ask.
not?
People always ask. All these damn people always ask. People always ask. People always ask. All these damn questions. People always ask. All these damn questions. All these damn questions. People always ask. All these damn questions.
People always asking me all these damn questions, and they so confused. I don't know what to tell them. Why he do this? Why he do that? How you do this? How you do that? Hell yeah, I'm trying to do what I want, and I get good grades. That's why I wear these hats with A's. These people recognize that's why they stay up in my face. Cause
People always ask. All these damn questions. People always ask. All these damn questions.
All right, man. Welcome back.
Good to be back,
Season
sir.
3. Yeah, man. Season 3. Last time we were here, we were talking about power,
Yes.
and I wanted to introduce that under the SALT, squared away L theory and the riot practice that I have. And right now, talking about that power is falling into the reverent portion of the riot, right? And understanding where we get our power from for what I see. And
Yes.
so I just wanted to make sure, we captured that going back to what we were talking about last time, because it's giving framework to
Yes.
just understanding what we're living in, and regardless of what you see, like how to just be better, you know what I mean? Like in understanding,
Yeah.
So
And yeah, but
go ahead.
you talked about that source, and I think that's what I focus on is that source, because over time definitions can change. Over time, words usage can change, and if you even go and look at the word power, like in the olden days, it was the same word used for miracle. It's miraculous. Dunamis
Mhm.
is the Greek word for power, which means demonstrative authority. Meaning, I don't care that you say you got power. What can you demonstrate? What can you do with said power? Because anybody could talk power, but what can you demonstrate? What can you articulate or bring into existence with what you're saying? And I think that's when you go into that source. It's what allows you to do that, to bring it up to you're alive.
Okay, so from the thought to the action of power,
There we go. From the thought to the action,
from the thought to the
or from the idea to the reality.
okay, which is important, right?
Yes.
So let's do a sweet serenade to thought and action, and
Okay.
understanding that there is a thought, and then that is a delusion, an illusion, and then there's an action that becomes,
Well,
physical reality
yeah.
to people.
But what you have to be, this is, it was a guy, his name was Descartes. He said, I think, therefore I am. That's a very powerful statement. He's not just saying I am, because if you even go to the Bible, what did Moses say? Who shall I say sent me? I am. Tell them that I am. So as soon as you begin to think, you cross into the I am realm.
That sounds important. That sounds important for a lot of different reasons. And it's about when people start using words like manifestation,
Yes.
right? Prayer, right?
Yes.
Energy,
Yes.
positive vibes. You know what I mean? Like these are the things that start to conjecture this thought that if I think about it, then I can do it. And that's the best mindset to have for anything that
Yes.
you're trying to do,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Have a positive mindset that I can do it, and that right there is half the battle. What they say.
and then if we are thinking without inhibition, we are thinking without, you know, you go bowling, and if you don't bowl well, they put those little bumper lanes so your ball doesn't go in the gutter if you bowl. Well, we're thinking without bumper lanes. We're thinking because your thoughts might be a gutter ball. It might not go anywhere because somebody else has thought this and it didn't produce anything. And I find that when you challenge thought or critique, you get more out of thinking by critiquing ideas that were once the foundation or the bedrock. You know, like I put a post and I said, you know, we always say treat people how you want to be treated, right? Well, let's challenge that thinking. Is that the best way to think? Because what if people don't want to be treated how you want to be treated?
Well, this sounds like a platinum rule, right? There's a golden rule and there's a platinum rule. So the golden rule is do unto others as you will want done unto you. But the platinum rule, do to people what they want done to them.
And and that's the thing. And so that requires thinking.
Well, so when we're talking about thinking, people think a lot of things, and that leads to feelings. And we tend to get caught up in this because I feel that feels real, and therefore it's everybody's reality, and there's a difference between truth and reality. But the thought in taking that thought and making it action and making it everybody's reality is where it becomes a problem when it becomes power dynamics, especially.
And then it's, how did the idea or the thought enter the mind? What was the catalyst for the thinking? Because thinking is not random. Thinking is calculated, meaning I'm thinking the thoughts that I have in my mind. So, for example, if I'm thinking about a problem, a worldwide problem, but I haven't been around the world, then I am not going to be able to encapsulate the thinking or the concerns of people who don't live in my eyesight. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to be inhibited by information. And that is the goal, is to get the most amount of information, but then being able to use it or categorize it and store it for when it is needed. You know?
Okay. Information, that goes back to what I always say. Information is the highest form of power, as far as being able to have it and keep it. And because we know that power lives in the shadows.
Yes.
Your most powerful people live in the shadows, and that's important to remember. I think to understand why things are potentially are the way that they are based on power dynamics, because you know we live in a society where we think meritorious service will get you the highest amount of power. But the harder you work doesn't get you more power. It just gives somebody else more power.
And then when you start to think about who teaches you how to think, meaning most of our lives we're told what to think. Like, this is what I want you to think when you hear this. When you hear 2 + 2, I want you to think 4. That's programming, neuro-linguistic programming. And then most of the times they've done research on this, where people do not want to be the divergent thinker in the group. People will conform their answer in order to be a part of the group. So they will discard what their eyes have seen if it means that they can get associated with the group, because no one wants to be an outcast. Because most thinkers will be outcast, because if you're thinking, you're automatically going to be challenging why, like I said, if everybody is thinking the same, then nobody's thinking.
Right.
By
Group
default.
think.
Right, exactly.
Group think. Well, okay, so that's important for action.
And there's nothing wrong with group think. So I don't want to say group think like it is negative, because group think is a way you get power. Because once you have the group thinking a certain way, Now that group can now build on each other's ideas and reality, and they can confirm and validate what someone else is feeling. So I think that it's not groupthink that's the problem. It's when the group is monolithic thinking. You know,
monolithic coming, more when more people think alike. I mean, they happen to have had gone through some sort of situation together, but more than often you look alike.
that helps.
The more often you look alike,
Yeah.
you right. And so when it comes to the human experience, under the power dynamics, you have these thoughts that come into your mind and you try to change the power dynamic in your life. So when you think about energy and you think about how energy comes into your house and comes to your life, you can cut on lights, like being able to channel your energy from a power dynamic and make things happen for you. These things happen because of power. And
Yes.
people, you would think you have to put your actual physical hands on something, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And that's if you believe, and you would have to know, right? What's the opposite of believing is knowing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And any technology that is advanced resembles magic. If the technology is advanced, it resembles magic. And this is one of, I think it's Clark's laws that he talks about, that it's indistinguishable, because if someone could do something that you've never seen done before, is it easier to believe that that person possesses a skill or ability that no one else has, or it's supernatural? You know what I mean? And so when you start to talk about what are the ramifications of thinking, thinking is actually dangerous. I don't think people don't understand that it's dangerous, because when you start to think, you are not inhibited by the structures of power. And if your thinking gets too contagious, there's usually sanctions. There's usually limitations or restrictions put on your ability to do things. Like I made a post on Facebook the other day, because you know me, most of the time I post stuff, I want to challenge people's thinking. I want to, and I want my thinking to be challenged, because if I'm saying something that ain't valid, I want it to be better. So I put on there that the word dragon and dinosaur, if you look at the etymology of the words, they're the same. One is a big lizard, one is a serpent. A serpent is a lizard. The term dinosaur was not coined until 1841. Prior to 1841, in the lexicology, that you didn't know the difference between a dragon and a dinosaur. So if somebody told you that a dinosaur is a mythical creature, your first thought would be, no, we have skeletons in the ground of dinosaurs. But if they were called dragons back then, I could tell you dragons were mythical creatures just by changing the language. Right. So Shakespeare added about 300 words to the English language of his own invention. He just added words like, bedroom. He added words that eyeball. And so what he did was he explained his perspective of something because he was thinking. I don't have to refer to this how it has always been referred to. I can now say, you know what? I want to call this critic. He coined the term critic. Because
what he termed the coin what?
He coined the term a critic.
Critic. Sorry.
Yeah, critic. And so when you start to look at what you can do with the language, and one of the biggest inhibitors of it is why they never wanted us to read here. Why they never wanted us to read is because once we learn how to read, and once language entered into our minds, we could then twist it and create it to what we wanted it to be. And I think that'll be the kind of the setting for the article about why it is so challenging for the Black children, and when it comes to educating,
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good segue in the confident opinion about this particular article that we read, and getting into the predominantly white institutions,
yeah,
and even we'll say in historically Black institutions, the lack of resources,
Yes.
but it appears to, you know, be a terrorist-like situation, or we would say a life where trying to learn is a battlefield.
Oh,
And it's a battlefield because there are so many barriers to the information, which is why I say information is the
yes.
power, right? And so, you know, this article talking about even the microaggressions, because if you think about earlier writings of, we'll say, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois explaining the experience of what it would be like to be Black trying to learn,
Yes.
and automatically being deemed uppity, and that's no good.
Yeah. And I think that information is universal. Anybody can know something. I think what I focus on is analysis, because information without analysis is noise. Because data without the ability to synthesize and without the ability to analyze it from eyes that were never supposed to see it. See,
Right.
when I analyze things differently than someone of European descent. I analyze differently. And I'm not analyzing different because I analyze different because I have a different worldview. I was not enculturated in the idea where my color made me supreme. So I was looking at the world as, why don't I have what you have? Why am I lacking what you have? Not realizing I wasn't lacking what you had. I was lacking the ability to analyze, classify, and then ultimately, when I think, because once you do analysis, the goal of analysis is to form conclusions. And I would say that the biggest impediment cognitively that we have is we teach people to not judge people. We say, don't judge them. But that's what analysis and conclusions are. They're making judgments, but they're not prejudging. They're not making judgments off of my opinions or off of what I think. I'm making judgments off of what the data is saying to me.
Correct. Everything is a data exchange, right? You're seeing
Yes,
media, you know, means between things. Yes.
yes. And I'm seeing trends in data, but I'm ultimately understanding that I am a collector of data. But as I collect data, I understand we are in a society where we want to scrutinize the source more than we want to scrutinize the information. Because the source of the information, if they're not credible, if the source is not valid, if the source has not been through prestigious PWIs, you know, then they're not going to look at your information as your analysis is valid, meaning it's just conjecture and opinion. But it's like, no, I was educated in the same institution that you used, and I read the same books that you read on how to collect data without biases.
So when it comes to a source versus the information,
Yes.
you know, there are checks and balances for all that. But what's right, what's wrong when it comes to those checks and balances depends on it depends on the data. You know what I mean? Like,
but I think I think saying right or wrong makes it seem as if my analysis is incorrect. So,
well, and that's why I wanted to introduce that north, south, east, and west thing, right? About you have good and bad, right and wrong.
Yeah, and I think that when I say wrong, etymology of wrong to me is unjust, not incorrect. Right. It's unjust. And so when I look at the word as unjust, what I see is this: is that I am not going to question the efficacy, right or wrong, of someone who is using a perspective that I don't share, because they have a worldview and they may see things that like for example, I'll give you a good example, right? I'm talking to a white supremacist, right? And this white supremacist believes that white people are losing power in this country and they should keep dominating people and blah, 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 systems, you know, whatever, right? Now, I don't share that perspective, but I understand that if I don't hear what they are saying to me, then I won't have a way to counteract their statements.
Right.
And so what I think happens in most instances is that we are approaching divergent ideas with hostility and opposition, not for the sake of understanding. Because if my goal is to understand you, then I will not be confused by my own interruptions of what I think.
Well, that comes back down to a power dynamic too, because you have to sit from a place of power, even in like internal power, to be able to ignore certain emotional things that come along with taking on the ideas of people. And we understand that because you're able to, you know, sit down and have a conversation with a white supremacist.
Yeah.
But that's important that you have the brain to be able to flex, you know, because you understand you have to agree with him in his thought process or hers, right? To be able to exchange ideas.
So I would like to think that what I will agree with is that your ideas can be valid to you. I don't have to agree that they are correct. I will agree that when I'm encountering people, most people, and I was talking to somebody yesterday on social media, and the guy asked me, he's like, "What's your agenda?" And I was like, "My agenda?" I was like, to inform people. He's like, "No, that's a perspective." He tried to make it sound like he wanted me to say what he wanted me to say. And I was like, I was like, to educate.
I mean, go ahead. I mean, it sounds like when it comes to that type of stuff, it's baiting, right?
I know,
because
but I think that's the beauty of it. See, the beauty of it is that I am not emotionally connected to any of these people here. I don't know this person. All I know is from your name on a social media site. You could be somebody else. So I am not getting emotional about somebody I don't even know. I don't know you. So I can be calm, and usually my calmness creates in them aggression because I'm calm. Now they want to get a rise from me, but I'm like, bruh, if you could see me over here laughing right now, like,
okay. So from a SALT standpoint, right?
Yes.
I gotta have these things, right? So we're talking about, so from a perspective of a human being,
yes,
right? There'll be four different ways that I would break down the human experience, and it's limiting depending on the person, right? So you have human, friend, partner, lover.
okay,
and it gets capped, right? Like you can have multiple lovers, right?
Yeah.
You have multiple partners, you have multiple friends. And when I say partner, I take that from this you're aligned in a goal, right?
Yeah.
But when you make it to lover, that's a different type of aspect, and you need to tread differently. And so these emotions live at every single level I just explained: human, friend, partner, lover. And so I think even depending on what sign you are, right? Like Pisces being tied to being emotional or something like that, right? Some people want to draw you in within one of those four perspectives. And so from the aspect of, like, we'll say a woman's power is a lot where she has it and a little where she doesn't. And she would understand that more than anybody else, just like anybody's walking this world, understanding the power that you have. But we understand women have certain powers in their beauty and their charisma and charm to be able to get men to do things.
I think it's called
right. And so
seduction.
It's the art of seduction, but that comes in through the human
Yeah.
emotion that comes in through the friend emotion, that comes in through the partner emotion, that comes in through the lover emotion, and that's all four elements, which normally get some sort of reaction.
Yeah.
Do you understand that power dynamic of emotion?
Oh yeah, and I one of the things that I'll give you, I work on emotional intelligence habits.
EQ.
And the reason that I like emotional intelligence is because before I can concern myself with any externalities with emotions, I must first manage my own emotions. Before I can concern myself with Kalvin think and feel, before I concern myself with some random dude on the internet thinks or feels, I must control my own emotions. So essentially, like, my emotions are inaccessible because I put them in a place where they cannot be accessed. Okay. Unless I need them right now. So when people try to get emotional with me, I focus on the logic with them. So when you start to attack my character and try to talk about me as an individual, I'm like, you're not using a good argument. You're using an ad hominem fallacy. So you are not. We cannot continue our dialogue because you do not want to have a good faith conversation with me. And
so what's the difference? What's the difference? And we'll say trying to use the situation for the emotional effect, which sometimes is needed. It's needed sometimes.
Yeah, but I think the only time you're going to need emotion with someone you do not know. I don't know this person. I'm assuming they're a person. Maybe it's a bot. Maybe this is an AI-driven bot on here on the social media to get people all in their feelings. I don't know.
No. So that's where it goes back to that. I'm agreeing with you, the AI bot, right? Yes, but I'm saying from the human aspect, right? You have to tune your emotions to the situation. You have to tune your emotions between lover, partner, friend, human, but they should be shown. You would hope, Dr. Ham, that there would be some emotion at some stage, because that's where the reverence is missing.
Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, if somebody's being ignorant, it might invoke an emotion of frustration.
For sure.
But now there's a cure for ignorance. There's a cure for ignorance. Willing to learn. See, some people aren't trying to learn anything. So if you're not trying to learn anything, then I ain't the person that you want to be having a conversation with.
I think I find that accountability is what we don't like the difference of, right? And I say that again. When it comes to accountability, and I mean acute accountability, that is very meticulous and annoying. But I think it's what's missing, because when it comes to words, like you're saying, it's Greek. Like when you talk about Egypt and the Kemet situation, right? Like, there are differences between things. Yes. And what ends up happening is they get convoluted enough for there to be plausible deniability with information being blurred. You know what I mean? So knowing the difference between words is important, because when it's used to cloud somebody's judgment, to say, hey, I need you to do this, because of cloud them with this particular word, which could mean 4 different things.
Yeah, and so I use the word Kemet because I know that the term Egypt or Egyptian is a European term. It's what the Greeks call Kemet. And I make sure I say Kemet because I'm saying this is pre-Greek influence. So if I'm talking about Egypt after Greek influence, I'll say Egypt. if I'm talking about this, the land of the Nubians, if the land of the Geezis and and the other people who travel that area, that I want to differentiate that, because there is this idea that the contributions of Africa, once again, how we get these names is because Africa wasn't always called Africa, like, because
Right.
that's this, there's the sub-Saharan part of Africa, there's the Saharan part of Africa. There was a time when the desert, it wasn't a desert, but we understand that as things change, our conceptualization of them, or our understanding of them, it's a fallacy to think that that we are wiser than the people who come before us, just because we have more knowledge. Because we might have more knowledge than those who came before us, but we will destroy ourselves with it because we don't have wisdom.
I recently heard something that said intelligence is not a good survival strategy.
Well, I mean, if the goal is to use your intelligence from a worldview or perspective where, like, when I say European, I say that to say that the outlook of the European for most of history has been the idea of colonizer, invader, fearful of the stranger, and essentially apprehensive to anything that will challenge their power, primarily through the protection of their women and of their children, progeny, to project or generate power in the future. So that's usually, as a baseline, what I see.
Man, that sounded like side effects from some sort of damn prescription.
But and I say that because we understand that race is socially constructed. There were no races. The only race was the human race.
I like to take that same thought and framework and ask you, when you think about life as an individual, and you think about, you say retiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear everybody's opinion about what that looks like. Yes. Right? Because that's the American dream, supposedly. Well, not American dream, that's the dream period. That's the dream period to retire. All right.
But I'd say that let's look at the idea of dreaming.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that the idea is to make dreams reality. I think dreams need to stay dreams and reality needs to be reality. I think, like, I may dream of walking into a casino with $1 and coming out with my name on the building. But I tell you, the average millionaire in America is 57 years old. Average.
Right.
So what we're talking about is sustenance. We're talking about sustainability. And there is a myth in American society that we don't really talk about. And that myth is that we live in an individual society. Right. Which is a lie. We live in a collective society where they tell you to be an individual because people with power need individuals to keep them in power.
Right.
Because if I'm focused on individual attributes, and this is primarily when it comes to the education of the Black youth in America, we don't have a problem with a few Black people being scholars, Mensa, challenging the thing. What we have a problem with is when they do it in mass. Because if they do it in mass, they won't want to assimilate anymore. They will build their own. They won't ask you for handouts, reparations. They'll essentially say, listen, I'm going to redefine my reality based on my conceptualization of it. And you don't really fit in it because it's incompatible. Like, your ideas are incompatible with my reality. And so what I need to happen is you can stay in your dream, but I am going to now use the tools and the tactics that you have. I'm going to reverse engineer the tools and the tactics that has been systemically, institutionally individually just all placed on me. And I know the only way I can do that is I must first know intricately how it was built and why it was built. And if I don't have either one of those, if I have the how and not the why, I'm going to be confused. If I have the why and not the how, I'm not going to make the best strategy. And so I pretty much got the why. The why is pretty much easy. The how is challenging because, like I tell people, it's on autopilot.
Yeah.
They don't even have to do anything anymore.
Right. Well, at this point in time, you have people who look like you guarding the gates.
Yeah.
Because they put the power is in survival now, because it's about fear of, well, being that homeless person on the street, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, if you're able to say, hey, I need you to do this job, which is oppressing systematically or whatever, right? But you'll never know it. But when you're arguing with people and they're just trying to get something that's fair, yeah, you need to stick to company policy, because we would hate to have to let you go. There's power in that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that, and this is, I me, man. I'm only optimistic when it's necessary. I'm pessimistic when it comes to reality, because I understand that we are going through an evolutionary change. We are punctuating the equilibrium, so to speak. And
so why would you? So when it comes to, we'll say this, why would you feel your pessimistic framework?
Yes.
Why you feel like you need that? Why the pessimism versus optimism? Because of the energy. Because of the energy, I would say.
No, so this is why I say pessimism, is because when we understand human nature, we'll understand that human nature, apart from very few instances, does not recognize everybody as human. Human nature does not. Throughout history, we always had to have, like in Germany, the Ubermensch, the subhuman, the Underman. Like so it's the human classification to be the dominant species over other humans. And I think that over time plays out in very chaotic ways, because when I can't use my institutions or when my arguments that I am not superior fade away, what has been resorted to historically is force and violence. I'm going to silence the people who can challenge me. I'm going to take out the people who are the biggest threat to me. So, which is why if you see a black leader or a black spokesman, so to speak, who speaks on issues in our community, what you'll see is this: they know what is or is not acceptable in that Overton windows perspective. They know how to be right at the edge of what is acceptable speech. But when our most educated people can't say what's on their minds, we're in trouble. When our most educated, when our most read people, when our most historians, when our most public policy, when we cannot say what's on our heart and mind, we're in trouble, because we have been the tool that have been used to keep everybody else sedated. And I think that, I don't have the energy to I think understand what we are going without pessimism, because optimism takes too much energy. To your point about the energy, it takes a lot of energy to be optimistic. When you've seen what you've seen, when you've been to the war zone, when you see what humans can do to other humans, like Voltaire said, anybody who can make you believe an absurdity can make you commit an atrocity. And this is where I see the vast majority of our citizenry. I see majority of people who are comfortable not thinking. They actually prefer to not think.
Man, that is saying a lot and a little, but a big statement, because I mean, we're getting to the point where they're going to end up owning everything, right? So right now, big companies, the two biggest companies, are buying up all the houses, right?
Yes.
And so they're creating a society, because I mean, in the whole, diffusion of innovation type thing that goes on in a cycle, right? Right now, the cycle in which we're in, everyone wants lavish things. Nobody wants to work, right? Because of the way society, the disparaging wages between, the 1% and the bottom.
I mean, the United Nations has already done a study on this. They've said when it takes 40% of your income to feed yourself, there will be social unrest in your country. And so just so we know this, if you look at every revolution in the last 500 years, they have been perpetuated by economic situations apart from colonialization. Getting oppressed out of their land, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, English Revolution, apart from the religious based, and even the religious revolutions were based off of who will get that church money, who we're gonna send it to Rome, we'll keep it at the home. Who will get the money? So revolutions, Arab Spring in 2009 when Gaddafi was killed in 11. When you look at revolution in Darfur, there's the greatest indicator of a revolution in your country is this, and America is primed for it. It's when the people who historically had the majority of the power find themselves in a decline, either in population or influence. They are the ones who lead the revolutions. Two reasons. One, they have the resources and means to do it. And the second reason is they have to strike while the iron is hot, before they lose too many people and they start to get no longer, it's like, I can't cheat now because I don't have enough people to cheat. That's why the Confederacy broke away from the Union when they did. Lincoln wasn't trying to let them boys go. They left because they thought that Lincoln was going to take their property from them. And Lincoln said, I'm not going to take your property from you. But they jumped the gun. And this is what happens when you have power, you jump the gun. The people with no power don't start revolutions. They get massacred. Right. The people with no power, I mean, even in Russia, if you look at the Russian Revolution in Tsar's Russia, the Bolsheviks' campaign slogan was bread and water. That's all they promised. Look, if you vote for us, you can get bread and water. And if I don't have bread or water, you got my vote. And when economic issues come here, because they will, because for some reason, I don't think in America we think that the laws of economics apply to us. Like I think we don't. I think we're deluded to think that supply and demand can't affect us. That global trade, that we can't have a global oil strike and shortage because we've never invested in trains in this country. And if we have a global oil shortage, when people can't drive to their jobs anymore, the U.S. economy will collapse in a couple of days. We don't talk about that.
No, and it's one of the most scariest things that people don't talk about.
But I think it's not. It's the normalcy bias, because see, I need you keeping up with the Kardashians. I need you focusing on what the Real Housewives of Atlanta is doing. I need you focus on your fantasy football team, because that's.
Hey man.
Hey, that was for you. That was a shout out. That was a shout out. But no, I need you focusing on spectacles like the Coliseum, watching the UFC, watching gladiators fight, because you don't realize that the treasury is being robbed while you're being entertained. And so I am not naive enough to think that when you talk about emotions, see, this is the thing about emotions. See, when people
They make you
feel,
cry sometimes.
well, no, when people feel that information is being withheld from them, it evokes a different type of emotion. Like there are emotions that lead to murder. There are emotions that are like rage. There are emotions
Well,
that are mania.
but those same emotions will be mitigating in the courtroom because of how fast they happen. You know,
They ain't
depending on the
going to the
situation.
court, bruh. They ain't going to the courtroom. Hey, all those emotions you talked about was on January 6, 2021, when they was taking bowel movements in the Capitol, destroying property, people trying to break in. See, they got to walk home. They got to go home. I saw some of them.
A privilege.
I saw some of them getting helped down the steps that were older. They were getting helped down the steps. I see some cops moving some barricades, because what we don't know is this. We don't know where
that was the prelude. Was that the prelude?
The prelude, but we see where your loyalties lie when you can no longer hide. See, you have you have a lot of Black conservatives that know that their primary function is to put icing on white supremacy. That's their primary function. Their primary function is to pacify Black people in this country that things are that we're making progress. And I'm like, okay, we own less wealth in America than we owned in the 1950s. Okay. And then you give me some tokenism. And I'm like, okay.
Black exceptionalism.
You want to see systemic racism and institutional racism in America? Tell me right now that America's over 250 years old, so and counting. And there are still some positions in this country that have never been held by a Black person. Because we think the president is the most powerful position. See, we've been tricked. It ain't. It's like the lead spokesman. But like, the presidents don't make public policy. Man, come on. We ain't that naive.
So a Black person has never been the majority whip.
Well, Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House, all that. You know what I mean?
There've only been 3 Black governors since Reconstruction in America. 3. Because what do governors control in their state?
Hey, that goes down to the Bill of Rights, you know, the 10th Amendment.
But what do governors control in their states?
The National Guard.
They do. And so that's important to note, because if, let's say, and I read the reports about how white supremacists have infiltrated the policing in America.
Man, hold on, pause. I was watching Forrest Gump.
Yes.
Last night, and I was watching that one scene where, you know, it might have been Governor Wallace in Alabama. They were trying to get the Black students, the segregation, right? And I saw U.S. Army, right? Alabama. It had to be Alabama National Guard. Right behind them, but I saw the Confederate flag on the United States Army uniform.
Oh.
So how many times I've seen Forrest Gump a lot of times. A lot of times. But this is the first time I've seen this Confederate flag on the United States Army uniform. And so now that's making me question, was the Confederate flag on the Alabama National Guard uniform?
I mean, it'd be public information, but what we're talking about, when we're talking about policy, what we're seeing is that the people who make the policy are, to your point, are the ones you don't see in the office.
Right.
They're the ones. Yeah.
So go back to the governor thing with a black governor with the National Guard, like giving that power.
Like Daniel Cameron.
That's important. That's important to know about.
Well, Daniel Cameron is a Black Republican from Kentucky who ran for the governor of Kentucky. He's a Black Republican. Kentucky is a Republican state, and the Black Republican candidate did not win in the Republican state. And so if you look at the Republican Party is 85% white. And so they understand two things. We know we need Tim Scott. We gotta have at least one senator. We gotta have Tim. And then Tim talking about I'm not the exception. Bruh, you are the very definition of the exception. Like, it's like you don't even see that. Because I get it that you get to sit at a table and talk about issues that, like, you are the black voice that a lot of these racist Republicans are ever going to see or hear in person, in private. And so
that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure to be the token.
Well, but the thing is, only if you don't see it in your interest. Because
right.
When we talk about worldview in this post-racial America, even to education, what I see happening is that we're not necessarily caught up in what color the leaders are. It's what are the ideologies of the leader. So to Kentucky is a good example. The guy who won in Kentucky, I think it was Basher or something, he was a Democrat. Now, your question is, how does a Democrat win the governorship in a solidly Republican state who supports abortion rights for women, who's more progressive? Because see, what they understand is this.
Bro,
they understand what?
I just that was rude, but I feel like so what I hear you saying is that we need to infiltrate the Republican party and try to run and get
no, because essentially as a strategy, it's cool if you have a black friend, but it's not cool if you got too many black friends, because then your white friends are going to think, well, wait a minute, where their loyalties lie.
Yeah. Well, so why is it that the solidarity of, we'll say, homogeneity, always
these are the big words.
All right. That's for the credentialing. So for the experience, why we tend to fall with people who look like us, because in this world, the oppression is similar to the people you look like, unless somebody shows themselves as having a similar path, which is why like we had my boy BK on here talking before, giving that perspective, right? Because these are things that hold us accountable too, just like being American with the supply and demand is in not understanding how the infrastructure can go down, just like that. That ignorance, willful ignorance, is the same thing with race, though.
Yeah, but I find that their arguments aren't as good as they used to be.
Which ones?
Like conservatives used to be the intellectual ones. Like William Buckley, when even Ray came out, like they were considered to be Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell. Like they were the thinkers. The Democrats were the emotional huggers, and the Republicans were the logical fact. Let's deal with the data. As long as the data is produced by us and not by anybody who doesn't support what we think, we're good with it.
Okay, now you're talking.
But now it's flipping. Now these Republicans are like Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, some other dudes. It's like, bruh, this is the best y'all got. This is the best y'all got. And you're like, well, yeah. And you starting to see it that they don't have any new arguments.
Well, the moral fabric of the Republican conservative message is deteriorating, right? Because they from that particular, Dr. Hyde's 6, different moral, we'll say foundations, right? The moral foundations, conservatives normally had all 6 of them. There were 6 And conservatives could hit all 6, and liberals could only hit 3. That's the harm and care, the fairness and justice, and liberty and oppression. Right? There's a sanctity, authority, and a loyalty one that makes 6. And liberals, I think we're getting to a point now that the Republican conservative moral foundation argument has deteriorated, and so it looks the way that it looks now.
So we understand that democracy wants polarity. We want to be we want to be able to match energies on one side. So when one side gets too radical, the other side pulls them back. And see, what we're losing here now is that the Republican Party doesn't really care much for democracy. They actually don't like people voting, because they understand if they let people vote here, then they would see that the only thing that people here really want to conserve, because the idea of conservatism, the root word is to conserve. Conserve means to preserve something as the way it is. And if you're Black in America, my question is, what do you want to preserve here? I mean, now don't get me wrong. If you Black and you've been successful and you've made money and you climbed the ladder and now you see this in your best interest to be quiet about Black issues, hey, you know what? I ain't mad at you. Do your thing. Do your thing. You don't owe me anything, Black man. You worked hard, sacrificed, climbed the ladder. Okay, cool. But don't become a weapon that my adversary can use to now attack me. Because it's like, just go live in the Beverly Hills, live in your mansion, get your creature comforts of, the things that you were deprived.
But that Black excellence, or we'll call Black exceptionalism,
yes,
automatically turns into a weapon.
Because
you know why, and I know you're about to get deep on it, but it becomes a weapon because it says, well, if they made it, you can do it, based on the situations of the way we live, because every single situation is convoluted based on the individualism and the collectivism of how we live in America.
Yeah, I would even go as far as to say that white supremacy can't exist without it.
Yeah, no. White supremacy, Black. There has to be Black oppression for white supremacy to even be a thing.
But I'm talking.
America doesn't exist. America doesn't exist
if they don't have the people that they can point to. If they don't have the token people to point to, and like I said, I don't think of it as a monolithic group. I don't think that we don't pledge allegiance to people here. I'm not concerned about people insofar as I am concerned about ideas. If your ideas are harmful, then we need to talk about your ideas are harmful, not what color you are. Now, that goes back to we're dealing with the source and not the data. And I don't want, because when we get into the source, we're going to lose sight, because now it makes it look like I'm trying to attack a Black man. I don't want to attack anybody. I want to attack the ideas that are coming out of your mouth. So when Tim Scott says something, or when any of these Republicans say something to me, if it makes sense, I am not an ideologue. I can say, you know what, Tim, that's a great idea. You try to do sentencing reform, I support that. But when you go on national TV and tell me America ain't a racist country, I can't support that, Tim. Can't support that. And
that's a delusion.
It's illusion. And so anyone who has already made their mind up before they hear the issue is an ideologue. Like, I don't know what I think about the issue until you tell me. I don't have a preconceived idea. Like, what do you think about abortion? Well, tell me the situation. Tell me the story. What do you think about taxes? Well, tell me who's getting taxed. Like, because I think that if I'm going to just walk in lockstep with a group of people, I should be able to disagree with you. But I can't disagree with you if we are becoming the minority. If my group is becoming the minority, if I disagree with them too much, then we are going to lose power. So I'm going to now double down on my group, because my group is the only identity that I have in this country. I'm not an American first anymore. I'm a Republican American. I'm a Democratic American, because we know we live in two Americas, might be three. We know that. And we understand that because we live in these Americas, we understand that your America don't know my America.
Right.
Because when I tell people all the time, I said, when you see an issue, your thought is this, and this is how the psychology is so twisted. People will use Dr. King's speech that they want to be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Now, this will be a great strategy if I want to keep my racist power. Like Dr. King gave you a nugget. Like that man gave you a nugget. And they ran with that nugget. Oh, my content and my character. Even though they got their skin in the background. So when the content don't go, when the content don't work, they can fall back on that color. So
let me can I interrupt you for a second?
Please.
I feel like that being able to fall back, that is the biggest thing that maintains racism right now.
Yeah.
Is silence. And we've talked about that multiple times. Right. And
strategic silence.
And it's to the point now where I think when we were talking about weaponizing Black exceptionalism, when you talk about Black exceptionalism, it's one of those things when you blaze the trail, you feel the pressure of giving back. Right? There is going to be pressure to give back as a Black person because of the lack of power and we'll say access to wealth and success, generally speaking, and so Black exceptionalism is what the Real Housewife thing is, right? So I wanted to tie all this together for some reason, Doc, because it's important that when you see power a certain way, it could actually make that group think.
Yeah,
it's that group. I know. Listen, hear me though, because this is where like hip hop, Real Housewives of Atlanta, NBA, sports, because we were talking about like it becomes this bottleneck effect to where we push our power to places where other people control us. Through Black exceptionalism, through what people think Black excellence is, but Black exceptionalism.
Yeah, but
does that make sense?
No, it does. But I think of it as to say, I think that this idea that you have to give back it's interesting to me, because I think that we're the only ones who are told this.
Well,
like it was Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Has Warren Buffett been told to give back anything? I mean, is it a cultural expectation that you are having to give back if you're not Black?
Absolutely. Listen, outside of the Black world, right? It would be opposite in the thought, because I would say the true thought is that white people have it easy enough that their parents and their parents' parents and the white experience has given you the platform to be better and be more advanced in this world than people of color, Black people, indigenous people, whatever, right? We know that that's not all the same.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the same people that you're naming, you can name Donald Trump, Gates, name them all. They had the opportunity based on their hereditary, right? And the fact, meaning that their parents were in a good position and gave them opportunities to fail multiple times.
Yeah, but to your point earlier, these are not going to be the people who are conditioned or positioned to fundamentally help Black people. They won't.
Who are we talking about right now?
Athletes, entertainers, singers.
Oh yeah.
These won't.
You know that. We know that.
Because I think that they don't need that burden.
But they do it though. They do it though.
Yeah, they do it. And I think the reason that they do it is because after a certain level of success, because you got to remember, there's not a lot of second and third generation Black money in this country. It's not a lot of, I mean, most Black people who are wealthy are they're new money. They're young money. They ain't got, I mean, we don't have generational millionaires who are that many. If you look at it on a per capita basis, the first Black millionaire in this country, what year was the first Black millionaire in this country?
Man, I don't know.
First Black millionaire.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. But it's almost in my grandmama's lifetime.
Well, everything for us, everything.
You see what I'm saying? Like in my grandmama's lifetime.
We live in a time where everyone who is living has seen so much in their lifetime, in this 100-year span, that most people who existed in the world had never seen so many different, what you would call punctuated events.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like even the systems that were done. Because Majak, the reason that there's a big wealth gap in this country is because white people could own homes in suburban areas when we could not.
That's the first way to build wealth. That's the first way to build wealth.
We were not allowed home equity. So as a form of reparation, every Black person is exempt from property taxes in perpetuity. In perpetuity. We don't pay property taxes no more. Because that was the way that you systematically gave certain people a benefit over others. Now, how will we offset the income of not paying property taxes? Well, it will be subsidized. We're going to stop paying for schools by property taxes from local areas. We're going to pool the money together. We're going to pool the money together so that, like certain countries, that outlaw private schools, so that the rich people have an incentive for their kids to go to nice schools. So like I need the school to be nice because my kid go there. See, we don't have that in America.
So, but these CU, man, hold on. Do you have like some sort of degree in public policy or something?
I take a few courses. I took a few classes in public policy, but I understand that when I look at public policy in this country, what I see happening is that policy is generational here. We are dealing with intergenerational policy. See, most people think we're just dealing with today policy. I'm like, no. We're dealing intergenerational policy.
Hoodie, by the way.
And it'd be like stop bad intergenerational policy, because the thing is this: we all think that the people who were racist in this country were wrong. We think that they were bad people now, but we love the institutions they built.
Well, and so we were talking about that, right? I was talking about that with you the other day, of how like Black people now turn to the same institutions that, and we can't throw stones because, I mean, you and I benefit right now from certain institutional things that have existed,
But no,
I'm not above that.
But no institution is trying to solve the problem that the institution is designed to address. So
there is no problem for the people who are winning.
Well, yeah, but even in that winning, like this, sometimes the status quo can be winning. But
that's what we're doing now. Okay. Let me ask you this. Now we went over our hour section.
Okay.
We went over our hour section. So now we're just getting after it. And I appreciate when we get in our get after it section. But I mean, when you think about, let's think about this for a second. Let's pause, because we're at hour 10 and we normally kind of switch off this, but we didn't get to do it last week. I apologize. I was sick. Like, we're taking a pause right now because we've been going hard, but I apologize for being sick and missing last week. Okay. I want to go longer today since we didn't get to do last week, and I want to be able to put this on the timetotrack.com. And if you're thirsty or something, I know we've been doing this and get a little antsy. But man, I think we might need to come to a pause.
Yeah.
I think so. And we can put a stop on it for a second and come back. And if somebody wants to be there, we can do it. But I want to say this before we take this pause, man. It's always good to come together and have these conversations with you.
Yeah, 100%, man.
And the reason I always want to stop and give you a shout out because the information that you're putting out here and that you're allowing me to be a part of, I have to document it and make sure that it's known that this is a journey, an educational journey. And what we're trying to do here is give, a warning or a guide. And if it's confusing, ask questions. If it's, let us know what's going on. Let us know how you feel about what we're talking about, because, the feedback is wanted, even though, we already know. I already know how I feel about how people hear these different messages, but it's all about, the individual. And so, today I don't want to do a money tip or a book tip because I really don't feel like doing it today. I really don't. But as we come to this intermission, because we're gonna end this stream and probably do another record, and we can come back in. As we get out of this thought and action piece, we were talking about education and with information and power. It just seems like there have been a oppression of blocking education, and with thought and action, the power dynamic is that you have the power to think about whatever you want to, but the actions you're able to make are limited by the powers you actually have based on your environment. And with Salt and Riot, I try to push this stuff from this educational piece just to understand how to maneuver through it, because just me and you, we've seen things that other people haven't. And if the Lighthouse series can give one person, like that one viewer who's left as I clear the room, if they can give them vision, we're doing exactly what we need to be.
Oh yeah.
Doing,
Yeah.
Pardon you. What's your parting shots right now before we?
Oh man, because I tell people, I say, if you ask somebody a question, because I do believe you get more information by asking the right question. If the question is asked correctly, it will give more insight than a question that's not given much thought. So I asked people, I said, what do you think the purpose of education is? What is the goal of? So once I am educated, what should I be able to do with it? Now, I submit to you that I think, and I say think on purpose, because I haven't found this. I haven't found this, but I think that the goal of education should be how to solve your own problems.
Yeah.
It should be how to solve my problems, not how to solve your problems. See, education in our school teaches me how to solve your problems, not how to solve my own problems. I can't take what you give me in this school and take it back to the hood and transform the neighborhood with this knowledge you gave me. Okay, sorry. I can get out of the hood. Now, I can get out of the hood with the knowledge you gave me.
Right.
But I can't take what you taught me go back to the hood and sell it to nobody. They don't want it. They sell it. And so if education is not giving you the ability to solve your own problems, if mama can't afford her insulin medication, the fact that you know quantum mechanics don't mean nothing to me.
Oh my gosh.
It don't mean nothing to me. I don't care. I don't care like that. You can dissect a frog.
You so silly, man.
No, it don't matter.
Look, so look, we're gonna take this pause. We're gonna end this one, and we're gonna jump back on. So hey, so for everyone still here, we appreciate you joining us on this Lighthouse series, episode 2, Thought and Action. We're gonna take a pause, and we're gonna try to come back in the next 10 minutes, and we're gonna jump into actually another episode. So if you want to join us, we'll appreciate it. We're still gonna do it anyway. All right. So we out here.
Indeed.